And I'm glad you brought that up, Adam, because I think, and this is the last issue I wanna mention before we pivot to curriculum. I think the single greatest problem plaguing the education system has to do with teachers, which as you said, which how we're undervaluing and underpaying and underappreciating teachers relative to other professions in America and relative to teaching in other countries. I mean, this is something that my education studies mentor at Brandeis spoke about quite a bit. She used to say that the philosophy in America is if you can, do, if you can't, teach. You know, education has become a stepping stone for many people in their careers. We know this from experience, but organizations like Teach for America have exacerbated this by taking high-achieving college graduates and placing them at charter schools in underprivileged communities for 2 years. And then most of these participants will then go on to law school or medical school or grad school. So they're looking at teaching in America as something to do before you really want to do, what you want to do. So, Adam, as you know, teaching is just as important, if not more important, than any other job that people are tasked with. I mean, can you think of a job on par with teachers or more important than teachers?
Well, I'll give you one just based on the stresses that they undergo. Teachers experience the equivalent amount of stress in a given day to an emergency room physician. So we should be putting them on par with our lawyers, our doctors, and other leaders of society. But right now they're, to your point, kind of marginalized as a secondary profession, a consolation prize of sorts.
And let's get into the numbers on that. I mean, in 2019, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I'm going to put all the stats in the detail section for you. The average starting salary for a teacher in America is $38,617. And the average salary in general for any teacher is $58,950. So we're paying a starting teacher $38K. And in general, if you've been teaching for 5 years or for 30 years, you're making on average $58K. And, you have to understand those numbers vary based on geographic location. They're higher in cities like New York than they are in, Midwestern areas like Montana. But teachers earn less than, Adam, get a load of this. According to the BLS, teachers earn less than painters, sanitation workers, gas station attendants, truck drivers, highway maintenance workers, ceiling and floor installation workers, home appliance repairers, travel agents, paper hangers, I'm not sure if you know those are, secretaries, admin assistants, tire builders, dispatchers, stonemasons. I could go on for an hour. There's tens of thousands of jobs listed on the BLS site, and teachers are making less than maybe all of them. And so, if we look at the root of the problem here, it's hard to attract the cream of the crop coming out of college with a salary of $38,000, less than a gas station attendant, or a dog walker, we were talking earlier about that, or a truck driver, when they can get a job at IBM in the private sector, making double or triple that out of college. I think that you could make the case that, the biggest problem in society is our underpayment of teachers. And when you compare this, when you juxtapose it to education systems in Finland or Sweden or Denmark, which are highly regarded as, the most stable and most successful education systems in the world, teachers rank in their societies as among the highest paid. And teaching there, Adam, is prestigious. It's well respected. It's competitive. Everyone wants to teach in Finland. So I think as we as Americans, if we want to have that type of education system, we need to start by paying our teachers better. What do you think of that?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that you point out is status. So we'll definitely get to the financial piece, but simply put, I mean, teachers are kind of marginalized right now. And meanwhile, they have this paramount role in society. And you're right. Some of the other nations that have, quite frankly, leapfrogged us in educational attainment value their teachers. They get the best in their high schools and post-secondary institutions to teach and impart that knowledge to the next generation of citizens. So in part, that kind of explains why, our teacher workforce is shrinking right now in pretty much every state in the country. There's a significant teacher shortage. And that's particularly problematic, especially in our under-resourced school districts, where they're, for example, pulling teachers right out of college, idealistic, doughy-eyed individuals, exactly. And they don't have any tools to be able to teach students who are undergoing some of the most significant challenges. There's also an issue of retention. I'll mention one step before we get into the pay. The cutoff point is really 5 years. There is a significant majority of teachers that after 5 years say, I'm done, this is too stressful, I haven't received the supports I need, I'm out. And then they go to one of those more lucrative private sector professions. You're having fewer and fewer teachers who are entering the pipeline and fewer teachers who are staying after 5 years. Mm-hmm. So one piece of the puzzle there is just simply status and perception. The other is pay. So state legislatures across the country have, as you may have seen it, as many folks may have seen, are rallying to get the pay that they deserve. And we see in, last year in particular, Arizona, West Virginia, and assorted other states. We've seen it more recently in Los Angeles, Denver, Sacramento. Teachers saying we've had enough. We need to be validated and supported. And state legislatures are begrudgingly issuing those 3 to 5% raises. Still a long way to go.
3% of 38,000 guys is not much.
Yeah, exactly. So thinking about other incentives to support teachers and to actually, when we're looking comprehensively at a budget, allocating the dollars that teachers actually deserve for the role that they play. And it's just to note, beyond 8 to 2 or 9 to 3 or whatever the hours are, teachers are working far after to support after school activities. Teachers are grading over the weekend. And when folks say, teachers have that 3-month break.
I was just going to say
that. Not actually true. It's more like 3 weeks. And then middle of July, you're in professional development. You're preparing for the next year. You're developing your curricula. So teachers have, if you're drawing straws, the short end of the straw. Meanwhile, as I said, in terms of the role they play, probably on par with those ER physicians where your life is in the balance. So
that's that's why I'm glad I have you on here, because I think my perception was, they're chilling in June and July, they're at the beach, they're soaking up the sun. But you're right, as you said, professional development activities in summer. What about summer school? Don't some of them teach summer school?
Yeah, that's right.
And if they're into if they have athletic commitments, summer sports. But I do want to emphasize what you mentioned about status. And I think that right now in America, if you ask any kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, if you did a straw poll of 100, first or second grade kids, you'd probably get, doctor, firefighter. Do kids want to be firefighters? Astronauts? I mean, what did you want to be when you were 5 years old, 6 years old?
That's a good question.
So should we ask Cindy?
I actually don't know. Yeah, to be quite frank, I don't remember my professional aspirations.
Knowing him, I think he'd probably want to be an author, a writer, or maybe he's one of the few. He's the exception to the rule. I could see him being like, I want to be a teacher, but for me, I wanted to be a lawyer, like my whole life, and that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I will say that I don't know about you. I just don't feel like teaching is on that pedestal where people would be proud to say, I want to teach. I don't know anyone that wanted to be a teacher when I was in school. And I think that is the root of the problem. We need to make teaching the profession. We need the benefits to be outstanding. We need the respect and the appreciation, and we need to pay them. Mm-hmm. But I think when we do that, then you're going to have, instead of all these kids, rushing to law school or medical school, you're going to have people that are like, I can't wait to teach. I can't wait to shape the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll note, too, is it's also a question of expanding the perception of who can be a teacher. Right now, you see in the teaching workforce, the majority of teachers are still young white women, and actually older over time. So we have a problem of diversity, and even in gender, quite frankly. There are fewer male teachers as compared to female teachers, and could go on about the diversity gap. So we're actually, one interesting thing, and then we can shift to our next topic. Our student body is already majority minority. So basically the idea that the majority of our student body right now is non-white. Meanwhile, only 18% of educators are non-white. There are well-documented benefits that show a teacher of the same race as a student has lasting academic gains and positions them well for success. So creating the idea that teacher of the same race will understand a student's experiences and what they're going through in the classroom and outside of it, to be able to provide them with the supports for success. So when you ask children that question, even as early as 5, you're very much likely to get white women or white girls at that point to be able to say that. You will not get young boys, and you will certainly not get boys or girls of color. So it's expanding that definition of who can be a teacher, especially when we have that demographic shift in our country. So
I never even considered the gender differences. I mean, so I don't know if you have data to support this. You're telling me that, I don't know if you want to ballpark, 3 out of every 4 teachers are women in America?
I don't want to hedge exactly.
Yeah, because then we're going to report them, right?
Yeah,
Fake news.
No. The studies have shifted, and it certainly differs in every community. But I would say that's a general societal claim and what we see in the field. Because
if that's the issue, Adam, I think we might have solved the education crisis on the podcast. Why don't we just attract more, stable, established men, diverse men of all backgrounds to teaching? Because then, if you think about it, if we don't have enough diversity in gender, we get more men in there, That might be a short-term solution.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah.
Though, admittedly.